Hello YouTube, welcome back. We're still working on the cross country, the 2007 Volvo XC70, affectionately known in the family as Lagatha, the Shield Maiden Battle Wagon. Yeah, today we are commencing Operation Put Shit Back Together. Big brown truck arrived today with gifts. Brought me the new OEM Volvo PCV oil trap breather kit. All the clamps. I do have a new phenolic throttle body spacer we're going to put in there. Separates the throttle body from the manifold, keeps a little heat away from it. These are off just because I was curious what they look like underneath. They weren't really part of the process, but I'll put those back together. Interesting note, check this out. So I think there's the earlier video, which I think I'm calling the oil trap crud video that'll post before this one, where I took everything apart and cleaned it up. When I pulled out the fuel rail, this brown tip, this little mylar tip, I don't know what to call it. It's just a little disc that is press fit in there. It was broken in half. So this one, obviously the O-ring's off. These are really hard as a rock O-rings, so I'm probably going to cut those with an X-Acto knife rather than risk breaking these other four. I'm just calling them O-ring retainers. But this one doesn't have one. But the purpose of these retainers, all they're doing is keeping, when you pull it out, they're keeping the O-ring from sticking inside of these little ports right here on the manifold. So this one went inside there. Obviously I'd reached in there with a pick, but the funny thing is, see the V70 sitting out there? I replaced the entire PCV system on that car 2 years ago. I think we looked that up and we've addressed it. I don't remember it having any of these 5 discs, because if I remember correctly, when I did this on the V70, I had to reach into each one of these little ports where the fuel injectors inject fuel. That's why they're called fuel injectors. I had to reach in there with a little pick and pull out 5 O-rings. So we're gonna put this back together. I'm kind of doing the math quick in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 5 is an 80%. If I can cut these off and get new O-rings over the top of there without breaking those little retainers, we'll be good. Let's see how this goes. Everything is going in here. We ended the last video, the oil trap crud, with this thing cleaned out. Everything's off, ready to go, and we're going to put stuff back together. Maybe this gets done today. We'll see if it starts. I don't think it's going to start, because remember, 2 videos before this one, we had the problem when we replaced this exhaust variable valve timing solenoid, but we actually think there might be some slop in here. I'm getting this PCV system changed because I knew from the oil change it had a massive issue underneath with all the crud, and we're going to get this ready to go and take it. If it doesn't run, it's still scheduled for an appointment to get it up next week to Dynamic and have them dive into this, the exhaust cam variable valve time hub, if it's not working. And then if it does run, who knows, maybe we fixed it and we get lucky. But I'm not crossing my finger. I don't think so. All right, YouTube, just a quick follow-up on these injector heads. So see that? It's just a little, whatever this material is, plastic, mylar, I'm not sure what the heck that is, but it's a very specific thickness, and it's got a very specific diameter where it doesn't even spin on the tip. So it just snapped off, and it would have set in that little, you can see it there, little, it's like a little, right where my fingernail is, a little groove that it just sits on. So yeah, I don't know, I put a little slit with an X-Acto blade into each of these little fuel injectors, and then used a little pry tool just to get in there and pop the slit apart, lift them off, and peel them off, rather than, because I thought they're old and brittle and difficult to work with, those old O-rings. If I pull them across these, I'm just calling this a retainer, O-ring retainer. Don't know what, we're missing one there, no retainer. I was assuming that if I tried to pry those O-rings off, I was going to break all 4. So, yep, we'll go with this. I'm making it better than I found it. I took some electrical tape, just sealed these shut, actually put a new piece of loom on this. This is my electronic throttle module control line. This is one of the terminals coming off of the alternator. Patched this one up. This is the white one coming off the alternator as well. These are I think these are grounds. This one, I just pulled it off and sealed it shut. It had cracked open on the loom. Put a new piece of loom, got that one shut. Sealed this shut. It was just open a little bit. Just kind of getting those in place. Already stuck the bottom seal for the oil trap, and we're just gonna get these on real quick. Should be 2 bolts, 1 and 2, and then we can stick this other ground, which is this one, that one, right on there after the oil trap's in place. Operation Put Shit Back progress. These are back in. That's one of the grounds coming off the alternator. The second one I just put in. This is on. Remember, this was a zip tie before. It is now a clamp. This is a clamp. That is in all the way seated where it's supposed to be. This is where it feeds the oil residue back into the oil pan. The back bolt, I had to take this off, this nut, and then there's a bolt underneath here with a little clamp that holds that hose line in place underneath there. You can just kind of see it. I had to get those off so I could get a 7 or 6, I think it's a 6-inch extension to get back in there to do the 2 bolts. So there's 2 bolts that hold the oil trap, one there with my finger, and another one that shoots through right where these cables are at. It goes in a little gap. So I had to get these out of the way to be able to do it. So they're all back together, tightened down, ready to go. Actually, I think I still need to tighten this one. Just snug it. But these are in place. I do seem to have a superpower that no matter how I arrange these, it always seems to be the most awkward placement possible. So yeah, feel free to comment down below if those are not appropriate, but that's what I seem to remember. Although that was a zip tie. Where things get complicated. New intake manifold gasket. It does seem to be a paper product. The one I cut off for that came off here, I think it was the Volvo OEM, was kind of metallic. It was kind of hard to notch. But if you remember right, we didn't remove the thermostat. You can see it right here. It's still in place. And that doesn't allow this bolt to remove, which is the 5th or 1st, depending on cylinder 1, if you want to look at it that way. It's that one can't come all the way out. There's a notch in the manifold that allows it just to lift off. I think this one also has a notch. But what you do is you just take the scissors and you cut the notch out of the paper gasket. So it just sits in here, slides on just like the manifold will, into its place. Just like that. And while I'm in here, this is the best access I'm ever going to have to this, with all this loose and everything out of the way. Hopefully I'm never back in here again. I'm going to replace the wiring harness loom. These plastic, they get all brittle across here. I'm just going to replace these now. It's a lot easier now while it's all out and sitting here nice and easy to pull apart than it is to do it later when it's in place. So I'm going to replace those now, make it tidy this up. Doesn't that look better? New housing, or new wire loom, new accordion loom. Even one down here that's on some sort of, I don't know what the heck that is. Down here on the, goes along a transmission line that was just nothing but bare wires. That was long gone, so much better. All right, YouTube, had to donate a little blood. Getting back here, you can see this is the one I was upset about. It had nothing on it, not even a zip tie. It was just sitting there. It is now clamped on. Banjo bolt is in place. You can see 2 copper washers. It has a little tab that sits on a little shelf. Let's see if I can find that tab. It's kind of right here. Yeah, there's a little tab that kind of reaches out and grabs the shelf so that when you're tightening it, this was a 19mm box end wrench or open wrench to get it in there. You can kind of wiggle this I can't wiggle it now because I have it in place, but on the front. But originally I started here. Then I did this one, and it has a little tab that just holds it in place, and when you're cranking it down, it doesn't allow it to rotate, which is brilliant. Comes around here. I have clamp. There's a clamp back there. You got to come in underneath. I'll show you. Got to come in back there. Go straight back underneath here. And with an extension, you can tighten that clamp, this clamp. This one's on a clamp. I have it loose, so this can pivot until I find the right angle that I want it, because I remember this being a pain in the butt. This one's in place. So I did a little research on what this thing is doing. The antifreeze, the coolant, is coming in from this banjo bolt, so it's hot, coming through here, and it is slightly downhill. Comes across, coolant, goes through here, goes around the banjo bolt and into the thermostat, and then back into the radiator. So this is warm coolant. I guess it's just to keep this system hot. Gases are coming on, the crank pressure, or excess gases off the in the block are coming off the top down to here. And there's a second one below that comes into here. So those gases come in, oil separates, the oil solids, liquids hopefully, go back into the oil pan through this channel that was completely blocked with carbon buildup. Now there's separate, this thing's working on a vacuum. So up here, this banjo bolt that goes to the bottom of the manifold has a little valve in it. So when the manifold is under vacuum, meaning the turbo is not putting boost into the system, but air is being sucked into the intake, this opens up, and it allows the gases that are coming off the block that are in here now, because they come from either the top or inside the crank, and they are allowed to go suck from negative pressure this direction if the car is not under boost. If it's under boost, it sends it the other direction from here, in here with the coolant pipe, around to the back, and down to there where it comes back into the inlet tube just before the turbo. So it puts it back into the system to go all the way through back to the intake, so it can flow either direction, directly into the intake when it's under vacuum, or it can go, if the car's under boost, that closes, and this one would still be, there's no valve down here, so this one's always open, and it would just suck it under vacuum back in. So if the engine gases are constantly under vacuum to pull them out and put them back into the intake. So that's what I believe is happening. I really don't know what the coolant's all about, unless it's just to keep it at the engine air temperature or engine operating temperature, so it doesn't create any shock to the system on mass or anything like that. Or it could be just to keep it moving for the oil deposits that are in there. I'm not really sure, but that's what's going on, that I understand in my rudimentary explanation. So now it is time. This is the worst part, wrestling with this banjo bolt upside down and backwards with the manifold. My experience last time, it was a nightmare. I had attached the manifold permanently and then tried to get this angle correct to mount it up underneath with 2 copper washers, and it was a nightmare. This, what I found worked last time was holding the manifold loose, completely loose, unmounted, and then putting the banjo bolt on it while it's completely loose and able to move around in here freely. Getting this in, not tight, but getting it in place and threaded the threads started, and then installing this. So that's what we're going to do. There has been a lot of wrestling figuring out how the heck to get this thing in there, down in there where it fits, and because there's a lip right here. There's a lip and a lump right where my finger's at. So it can't sit on that side, or it sits crooked and pulls itself off as you tighten it. So the only way to do it, I had to pull all these off, is to set it like that. That's the only way I could do it. And then there's just a little bit of a gap. I might even rotate it just a little bit more to get it away from this ground. Yeah, gonna do that. We'll rotate it away from, there's the ground. See that? I'm gonna rotate the ground this way just a wee bit more. Reconnect all these. This car is just a wee bit different. When I took it off, I took off the 17-inch banjo bolt just down below my finger first. Had that completely out of the way, and I was able to reach in and get a hold of that 10. But the only way I know how to do this part, to get this to line up right, because that banjo bolt is so hard to get it started to thread. So what I do is I do it first before this is even mounted up, just kind of loosely sitting in there so we can pivot it. Reaching underneath there, my wife held it on this side, I'm underneath, reaching in like this underneath, holding it until I can get it to thread. And then by having this in place, it doesn't allow me to get an angle to get straight in there onto that 10 millimeter. I've tightened it up as best as I can. We'll see if it holds. If it's leaking, I'm gonna have to, I think it just seems like this alternator's bigger than what I have on the other V70, because the spacing on the V70, I can go in there straight with a 10-inch extension and no knuckle or nothing and get straight onto that bolt. This doesn't allow me to do it. It's just a little too tall, just sitting in there a little too high. It doesn't allow me to gain that access. So I'm not sure what to do on that. I'm 70% confident that's going to be tight enough to hold with a new gasket. We shall see. Everything's tight. Everything underneath is good. Let's get a last look in there. There it is. There's the breather box oil trap. It's all ready to go. This is all running around to the back. It is tight. Everything is clamped. Clamps everywhere. No zip ties. Ready to, I think throttle body's next. Yeah, throttle body. That gives you a quick idea of the phenolic throttle body spacer to keep the heat from the top of the manifold up on top. So heat's coming out of the block into the manifold. This gets hot, and it just keeps the heat, separates the heat off of the throttle body, helps protect it, because this thing's like $1,000. So it literally sits in the orientation it is, goes upside down and backwards right here where my hand is. 4 bolts. That's it. Piece of cake. All right, I got my throttle body down in there. Zooming in close, you can see it. Do you see the phenolic sitting up? A phenolic spacer sitting there to keep the heat away. It is connected. It is tight. I don't remember it being so tight back against. It just barely sits in front of the oil trap box. So I didn't really pay attention to it when I took it out, but that's got to be where it goes. It's sitting a little bit lower because of the phenolic throttle body spacer. So I'm going to try to test fit the air intake tube, make sure it's going to reach. I'm a little bit worried about this being in the way now. We'll see. Seems different. All right, air inlet tube coming out of the intercooler down there. It fits. This is a test fit. The reason I didn't think it was going to go around the front of that, because it goes over the top. Yeah, so it sits right over the top of the starter. Comes across, hooks in. I just cleaned up some clamps. If you remember right, these things were completely black. Actually, both of them were completely black. Just rubbed them off with a rag, little wire brush. Yeah, gotta just slide them on and tighten them up. We're good to go. All right, the throttle body inlet tube is on and clamped. I did want to pull this sensor. I think it's a combination air pressure and temperature. I'm not sure because the other car had two of them sitting right here, and these are moved up top right there. I wanted to pull that to clean the sensor on the inside from the oil bloat that's been going on for 173,000 miles. But I don't have a, let's see if I can light this up. I don't have that small, I can't get in there to that little itty bitty Torx. Can't do it. No way, no access. So it's just gonna have to, it's never thrown a code, so we'll just have to wait and see. Let's see, got the vacuum hoses back on. These are on, they're not tight. This one's pinched. Just need to tighten up this one and this one down here. I'm not even looking what I'm pointing at. This one right there and that one right there just need to be tightened up, and then we can slide. Gotta turn that around. It's actually sitting backwards, and it's gonna slide right in here. It's so much easier on this car. But yeah, big stuff going in. Fan shroud is in. Things are getting tight, getting back together. Still need to do, I gotta do the boost bazooka inlet tube down here. Its hose goes down there on my left. Still gotta do the, oil dipstick with a new seal. Let's get that done right away before things close up on us. And what else? Fuel rail needs to go in. I just have the all the electronics for it sitting up here. All the coils are tightened up. This is all sitting in here perfect. Everything's ready to go. To seal it shut, probably leave it open because those guys need to look at this when I take it up to dynamic. If that is not sealing that 10, I think what I'm going to do is we're going to pull the power steering pump off. I think I can leave it connected. It's got enough flexibility in it. And then just do the thermostat. We'll do a thermostat change. That's not expensive to do. We'll change the gasket, and that allows me to have straight access to the 10 millimeter back there to tighten it up. So we'll see what happens. Cleaned up the oil dipstick tube, and it actually had some gunk that had blown back up into the bottom of it. Looked like that splatter on the bottom of the oil pan might have come from the oil dipstick area. It was pretty gross. Actually, when I pulled it out, it had a green one, and it had a remnant of a black one below it, and then most of the black one down there was like kind of melted to the block where it was going in, or on the, is that the oil pan, I guess it is, down there? Where it was going in for the bottom, so it looked like it had a part of one that was kind of crooked and pushed in there, so it looked like it might have had two at one point. So we got it down to a brand new green one that came with the kit, and then we have the tube here that goes into the intercooler, coming over, connects to the boost bazooka. So I'm gonna get this on first, because if I remember right, this kind of gets this up here at the top, this kind of gets into the way. So I'm gonna get that onto the bottom. We'll tighten it up later with the boost bazooka back in place. Dipstick is in. That's waiting for the boost bazooka. Shorten this vacuum line coming off the intake manifold. Ah, there you are. I shortened this vacuum line that's blue. It was obnoxiously long. It was, I don't know how they ran it before. It was crazy long. So I cut over an inch off of it. Got these vacuum lines tucked back in where they're supposed to be. This one's snug. Got the fuel rail on. That's the one. This is the fuel injector without an end cap or a retainer ring. So everything's on there good. They all went down, pressed in nice and firm. I need to put the lock on the back of the fuel nozzle. I'm going to do that right now. And then we'll connect all of the fuel injectors. Had to do a quick redo on the fuel rail. My injectors are still fine. I just didn't have when I first did it and I pressed the injectors first, I didn't have this fuel line coming into the back of the fuel rail right here. I didn't have it in far enough that this tab could slide in and then screw in. It was caught on a flange, so I had to take this all apart, take these screws off, take the front screws off, 1, 2, pull it out, get that on there deep enough, put that locking band on there, pushes it in all the way, and then screwed it in, and then I could press these in and seat them and do it that way. I wish I could tell you that everything that I do is as linear as this video compilation, but it is not. I've had this on 2 or 3 times, had to remove stuff, reroute some vacuum lines. I didn't like the way they were done. I don't know if I put them wrong or whether they were wrong originally, but just getting things tidy where they're supposed to be, getting the controller line for the sensor line on the exhaust cam position sensor, the connector, running it behind this plate has a finger that sticks down, getting it behind there to protect it, redoing that. Yeah, it hasn't been fun. It's been long to get it all to this phase. So everything is connected, put together. I got my dipstick in. I need to loosen this screw and wrestle with the boost bazooka, which is sitting right there, ready to go in. Get the boost bazooka in. And honestly, I think I still got to run an air connector. I got to connect the air inlet to the box. That's not that big a deal. That's super easy. It just pops into place. It's sitting right there. There it is. But boost bazooka wrestling time. All right, world. It's connected. Everything's in. Cold air coming into the air filter, going to the turbo, coming back across boost bazooka, into the intercooler, out of the intercooler, into the throttle body, into the intake manifold, into the engine, fuel injectors, fuel rail. All of my ignition coils are in. All of the vacuum lines are in. Everything underneath is connected. Yeah, I don't even know what to call that stuff. Oh, there's a big one. Gotta fill that. No coolant in the engine right now. We'll fill it with coolant. Connect a battery, and we will turn this baby over and see what happens. I did check the oil. My oil dipstick is in all the way, and it is perfectly full and clean. All right, YouTube, it's running. Remember the other day when I took this apart and the boost bazooka was off? I never took that off that I remember. Maybe that was part of the problem. It wasn't running. Maybe it blew that off at some point. I'm not sure, but this is replaced. Yeah, everything's good. I gotta fill it full to get the air pockets out of the coolant system. Several, let it warm up, get it to temperature, and then turn it off, let it cool down, and it'll suck more fluid through. Got to keep doing that. And then that's it. It is running. We are good to go. Yeah, we'll go to soccer games tomorrow, come home in the afternoon, get this thing finished, and that's a wrap. If I can do it, you can do it, YouTube. Be safe. I ain't done yet. Got a slight drip coolant leak right over here off the transmission. Did look in there with the light. It is coming from the banjo bolt on the return line right, or on this line right here that comes around to the bottom of the manifold. So, gonna dig in there. Gotta pull this off one more time and get it in there with a wrench and see if we can get that banjo bolt a little bit more tight. All right, YouTube, back at it today. Thought about it last night. So when it started up, we had that little leak. I'm pretty sure it was coming off the banjo bolt. I was able to really force my way in there and try to get some more tension on it, and it still had a leak coming. I'm not sure. I don't know why I put all this back together when I started it up. I honestly wasn't expecting it to start and run. But anyway, this is all. I'm going to take all this back off, disconnect all these, so I can move things a little bit more and get a little bit more access to get under there to that banjo bolt. And the funny thing is when I did the V70 sitting right back there 2 years ago, it was November 2021. This exact same thing happened. I remember putting it all back together, and that banjo bolt was leaking, and I had to take it all back apart and tighten up that banjo bolt even more, because you got to remember, they don't. And I didn't. Honestly, I didn't remember. Obviously, the two banjo bolts are different. This one up here on the manifold corner is dealing with air. The gases from the engine getting sucked back into the manifold when it is not under turbo boost, just under vacuum. And this banjo bolt is dealing with coolant. So yeah, different stuff. This one needs to be tighter. I mean, they both have to be tight, but that one's harder to get to. Took those off, the 3 plates, the big one for the cross turret. That's the engine mount or the hoist to hold it. And then this is the outside edge that bolts into for the cross turret. But it gives you, I could see down in there a little bit more, get it cleaned up. I can see the top of the banjo bolt. It has both copper washers. What I was able to do is, with everything removed, I pulled, you can see it here. See it moving down there? See that's the coolant hose coming back from the radiator. That's coolant that is cooled down in the radiator. Pulled it out of this little, where my finger is, right there. Underneath there is a little oval that it sits in. Pulled it out just to get a little bit more room, and I was able to, from over here, get in under the vacuum lines, over the top of the radiator hose, the return line from the radiator, and with a lot of force, squish the radiator line a little bit, just enough to get that 19 millimeter to go onto that 19 millimeter coolant banjo bolt. And then it has a lot of friction in it because it's really pressing down across that radiator hose. And I was able to get a couple snugging turns on it. And I'm not sure, there's another little coolant line that comes off back in there just below the banjo bolt, pretty much right, almost directly below it. I wonder if I can see it. Can't really get a good look on it. See if I can get you some light. Yeah, you can see it. There's a little bracket down there, right above, where are we at? Hang on, work with me. Down there, that coolant, that little bracket right there. It is this one. See if I can point at it. That one right down there. It might be the culprit that's leaking. There's a coolant line, but I can get to that tightening thing, and then the banjo bolt's sitting just above it, kind of hidden behind that silver tube. So yeah, we're gonna try to start this bad thing up and get some more coolant in here, get some more air bubbles out, go through another cycle and see if we can get this thing to run without a leak. So we're gonna start this up. Probably not gonna shoot any video on that because it was running last night and you saw it. We just gotta get rid of a leak. No air box. I'm not putting any of that back in. I'm not putting any of these mounts back on the top of the motor. They're not holding anything anyway, since there's no cross turret between. There's no turret between the suspension, the top of the suspension strut mounts or whatever they are. So there's nothing holding this engine from rocking. We're not gonna rev it up real high. We're just gonna let it idle and warm up and cycle through some more coolant and see if we have a leak down there. All right, YouTube, I'm at my end. It's still dripping some coolant. Matter of fact, I think I made it worse from the banjo bolt on the driver's side of the engine block. But this thing, I'm gonna take it out for a little Italian tune-up, just to get it warm and cycle through some more coolant. It's still dripping very, very, very slowly from the banjo bolt. It's gonna go up to dynamic. I'll take it up there on Monday or Tuesday. Have them take a look at it. Still worried about that variable valve timing, the exhaust variable valve timing hub. So you have them check that out, and then just have them take a look at the banjo bolt, because I'm done giving it a shot. I tightened it up more, got in there really good, tightened it up a little bit more, and it seems to be dripping faster. So I am at my wit's end on that thing, and I don't want to tighten it anymore. YouTube, the cross-country Lagatha 2007 Volvo XC70 is fixed. Had it on Vita, ran it, no codes, everything was green on the entire network. I've had it out for another 40 miles of an Italian tune-up. The banjo bolt on the engine block driver's side is no longer dripping whatsoever. No coolant is leaking. Maybe I'm thinking, I had it as tight as I wanted to take it, but it was still just a little bit of a steady drip. And then drove it last night, got it out, warmed it up completely, and I'm wondering if that little bit of a the metal expansion at full temp just allowed it all to seat together with the copper washers on both sides of the banjo bolt, and it's no longer leaking any fluids. So I think the cross-country XC70 is fixed. Don't know why it wouldn't start the other day, but it is running perfect now with no codes, no issues. So yeah, we'll wrap this one up as fixed and done. Be safe out there, YouTube. If I can fix it, you can fix it.